What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Dylan. It's Kev. We're here for episode 7 of the Bottom Line podcast. Mitch will be here very momentarily. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of different stuff today. Of course, as always, we got the top 10 NFL offseasons, which includes the free agency and the NFL draft. We're going to talk about how certain teams did a much better job than others. We're going to talk about Roger Goodell and his wants to have a 2 preseason game season overall, which is pretty interesting. We're talking about Gerald McCoy. Mitch has been messing me up on that pronunciation for a while. Gerald McCoy and his signing with the Carolina Panthers. Mitch has already made a video about that, but Kevin and I will give our thoughts about it to start off the video. Where is Duke Johnson going to go? Because apparently he wants to be traded. We'll be talking about that. We have Kevil's suggestion, an NBA basketball team, but the NFL edition. So we'll figure that out later on. Saquon had some pretty interesting comments about Daniel Jones that we're going to react and laugh to. And then finally, Jermaine Kearse signing with the Detroit Lions. So it is a stacked episode, a whole bunch of different topics. You're not going to want to miss it. Before we get into the video itself, Kev, how you doing today?
I'm not bad. I have Canadians still angry at me, of course, because that's Canada is still mad at me, Dylan.
They're all on you about this.
They're all on me, because I've called out the hypocrisy. Yes, Mark Stevens, Golden State Warrior minority owner, should not have shoved a player. He should be banned. He should have to sell his stuff. That's great. I'm all for that. But Drake, get the hell off the court. And everyone's like, yeah, but he didn't touch anybody. He's still on the court.
He's on the sideline, Kev. He's not
off the court.
This is two different scenarios.
I'm sure.
But I do like the Twitter comments. Everybody's loving the Twitter interactions. I gotta appreciate that. For all those Toronto people, giving a little something.
I think I'm the only Canadian not cheering for the Raptors.
You were excited when the Warriors.
Yeah, so I may have to hide in your house.
Well, Game 4 is tonight. We'll see how that goes. Could they put a 3-1 lead on them? We'll see. But yeah, a couple of things before we get in as well. I'm starting a new gimmick here. I'm going to be wearing a new NFL shirt every week, or a new shirt every week. So once this is gone, 1 week, if I wear it, it's gone. Can't wear it for the next episode. After about 2 years, I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm just going to try something new with that. Today I've got the Browns Johnny Manziel jersey, for all those great people out there. All 3 fans of Johnny Manziel in 2015. Appreciate you. You're still there with me. His Browns time was nothing spectacular, but we appreciate Manziel for who he is. Second, thank you guys for 10,000 subscribers. We hit the mark on Saturday. Thank you very much. We wouldn't be here without you guys. We make the content for you guys, and we post videos for you. So we do appreciate that. All 10,000 and even more now, 645 at this moment. So that's pretty crazy stuff. We're on another march. We made the milestone. We're going to continue to make more videos for you guys because you guys are very entertained by that stuff. So thank you. And one last announcement. In 3 weeks' time, we'll be at episode 10. I can't believe it would already be episode 10 of the podcast. But I am working on getting a big guest for that episode. I'm working on that. We're going to do a big game show-like segment to start off that episode. Very excited for that. I've been wanting to do that for 4 years on this channel and haven't been able to do that. So now in 3 weeks' time, we will. We're going to get that guest here. I'm going to let them celebrate a little bit or maybe get through these NBA finals. Maybe that's a spoiler. I don't know. But we're working on that. Big prize is going to be up for grabs in that episode for one of you guys. So you definitely don't want to miss that episode. Plus that big guest. I know a lot of you guys also watch along with the Bottom Line View. So if you want to see that, you need to see that 3 weeks from now will be that episode. So very excited for that.
That's cool.
Thank you. All right. So now we're going to get into the headlines segment. We will have Mitch here very shortly, but we're going to get to the one that he already talked about, so we don't technically need him here. Gerald Mccoy. He has been signed to the Carolina Panthers as a 1-year contract. I believe it was $8 or $9 million, somewhere in that ballpark. Just about the same, if not a little bit less than Ndamukong Suh when he signed with the Buccaneers. It's a pretty interesting scenario here. Of course, Ndamukong Suh signed with Gerald McCoy's team, basically took his spot. He literally took his number. And Gerald McCoy is going to the Panthers in the same division. He can play his former team 2 times a year. He can have all that fun, in those kind of games. And it's an interesting situation because apparently he was looking with 3 different teams. It was the Panthers, it was the Browns, I believe it was the Ravens was the third team as well. And apparently the reason he wanted to sign with the Panthers is because it's more home to him. Northern teams, are a different situation. They're all the way up there. He didn't want to move, all that kind of stuff. So, of course, he has to move a little bit, but not as far. He wanted to play for a winning team. The Panthers are playoff bound-ish. They're in that, I would say tier 2 level, if you will, if there was other tiers. And I think the Panthers are a good team. I don't know how much of a winning team they are. They're not like a Super Bowl contender team, but I do have them as my second most underrated team in the league. So take that for what you will. Kev, what do you think about Gerald McCoy being with the Panthers, the former number 3 overall pick in the 2010 draft? Is it a good signing by the Panthers? Was it a good move for Gerald McCoy? What do you think?
Well, it's an understandable move for Gerald McCoy if he's comfortable in the NFC South, near Tampa. He has his home, he has his root there, so I get it from that perspective. In terms of feeling a little bit comfortable, and it sounds like, from what I was led to understand, that the Carolina players, including Cam Newton, went all out to wine and dine him. Not unlike what the Ravens did, but obviously it really must have come down to living situation. I think, to me, in the other perspective, it does hurt the Atlanta Falcons, who I believed needed to be in this race to improve their defense. But I guess my concern for Carolina would be how much you're spending on one position. That is a lot of money. That's another $8 million on one position. I think that's very interesting. But and there's no question that he is a talented guy, but it's $58.62 million on a defensive line. So is that what you want to be doing going forward? It is only a 1-year contract. I do think it does improve the Carolina Panthers. So I don't know how much of that. I think it's an interesting strategy. I think it puts the Panthers in a good playoff position and hurts the Falcons. So overall, I would say generally a good signing.
Yeah, I got to agree. I know the money for the defensive line is that there's quite a bit to be had in Carolina for their defensive line. But if that's what you're going to put as your backbone, along with your linebackers, Luke Kuechly, they got Brian Burns in the draft. So if you're going to build that front 7 on the defense, I mean, this is one way to do it. It is a pretty efficient way of doing it. 1 year, I always like a 1-year signing because it's a prove-it contract. If they don't do well, you can just let them go. 1 year's failure, whatever it is. It's not like a long-term, we're stuck in this situation. Gerald McCoy, I think, still has something to offer to this team. He probably had his worst year of his career last year, but he was dealing with some injuries and stuff. He wasn't 100%, in my opinion. But if you get, Gerald McCoy from 3 years ago, this is a definite great signing. And I don't know how much of a possibility that's going to be, but based on what they thought, they were really hungry to get him. They were a sneaky third team because we had heard the Browns from the very start. Like, okay, this looks like this is going to be the biggest team to get him. But then all of a sudden, the Panthers just kind of snuck in, gave him some really good offers, and boom, there it is. So that builds some team chemistry there. It's builds some trust. Some good stuff here, and it's a little bit of money. It's just the same thing with Ndamukong Suh. I was like, all right, here's what I think he should be getting, and he got probably 2 or 3 million more. But for players that have proven themselves, I think it's worth it. It's not that big of a deal. And again, that 1-year contract that I always like. So I like this signing. I think Carolina improves on there. And again, this is a team that I had as my second most underrated coming into this year. Definitely helps their case. There is no hurt, in my opinion, with this signing.
No, it doesn't hurt them in any way, shape, or form. And it hurts a divisional opponent. The other team that I think missed out actually was Indianapolis. I would have surprised that they did not get involved, but they've been very conservative.
They have been very conservative. I think they've had a lot of cap money, which is why we expected so many signings to go there. But I think their biggest thing was to re-sign their guys, like make sure they've got longer contracts, which we might get into in our top 10 off seasons. But yeah, I think the Colts were in play for Ndamukong Suh, Gerald McCoy, but I just think that I don't know. Maybe they're not interested. I think their defense is still quite good without them. Either way, it's not like they're struggling for players and they just missed.
No, they're not. Like, yeah.
I think the Falcons, with your point with the Falcons, I think it hurt them more than it would hurt the Colts because they could have definitely used this as an advantage for their defensive line. But yeah, good signing. I really like that signing for the Panthers. Good stuff. Let's see what other signings we have here. We have Jermaine Kearse, the former Seattle Seahawk, of course, probably most famous for the 2015. Would you say the NFC Championship game was the bigger catch? I guess it was. They won the Super Bowl.
That was the catch that got him to the Super Bowl. But he made an incredible catch that no one will remember in the Super Bowl because of an idiotic call.
So you probably know him from the NFC Championship game one, but if the Seahawks would have won, it would have been that moment. But yeah, he is now. First of all, he wasn't with the Seahawks last year. He was with a different team. He's now on the Lions. The Detroit Lions have signed Jermaine Kearse. I think this is a decent signing. You need a little bit of receiver depth. Golden Tate is far gone from the Lions. He started off the year there, went to the Eagles, now is with the Giants for I don't really know why, what reason. But sorry for another shot at the Giants. But Jermaine Kearse is there with the Lions. I think it helps add a little bit of depth. And, of course, Matthew Stafford, he could use any target he possibly wants. He's got Marvin Jones. He's got Kenny Golladay. I think Kerryon Johnson's going to be a solid, underrated piece. And then you got Theo Riddick, who just catches everything that's out thrown on the backfield. One of the best PPR running backs in fantasy, if you're looking for like a second guy, if you will. But you have you have Jermaine Kearse, who has fallen a little bit over here, but is still a decent talent. What do you think about this signing, Kev?
He kind of is a little Golden Tate-ish in terms of style. I'm curious why it took him so long to get a contract. I feel like there is something missing in this Jermaine Kearse story that we don't know, that I'm a little intrigued by, because this is a guy that should be a guy that I think a lot of teams should be interested in, I would think, just based on his talent. But he hasn't seen, since he left Seattle, he didn't exactly blow the roof open in New York. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's a really good depth position for Detroit. But I don't think it's necessarily a guy that's going to put him over the top at this point. He can make the spectacular catch, but maybe he's not. I wonder if the perception is if this guy is as consistent as people think he is. Already just reading from what was going on in Detroit is that it's already appearing that him and Matthew Stafford are sometimes on the same page and sometimes not. So it might be taking some time. So this is a guy that I think feels like a guy that has a little bit more talent than I thought, but is not necessarily. Maybe there's a consistency issue that I think is plaguing Jermaine Kearse.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you look at his stats here, in 2017, he arguably had the best season of his career. He had 65 receptions, 810 yards, 5 touchdowns. Good production coming into his first year in New York. And then last year, he might have had his worst year since his second year. 37 catches, 371 yards, 1 touchdown. He wasn't a big target for Sam Darnold, who a couple of receivers got lost in the shuffle with him. Rodney Anderson, I think, was a big example of that. So I think maybe Jermaine Kearse just didn't fit with what the Jets were going for and going forward. And, maybe the chemistry needs to take a little bit of time with him and Matthew Stafford. Of course, that, having a new quarterback is something completely different. So, yeah, I like this situation. I think it's a decent signing here. It all kind of just comes down to what Detroit wants to do with them. I don't think I don't think Jermaine Kearse is going to light the world on fire with what he's going to do. But if you had 4 on that team, like you've got Golladay and you've got Amendola and you've got Kearse would be a nice number 4. And their new tight end Hawkinson's also going to be there as well. He's a big target. So, overall decent signing. And Mitch, has
look
joined
who's here.
the video.
What's going on, guys?
He is there. The OBJ shirt. I like that. Where'd you get that one at?
I got that one. I haven't worn it ever because it's actually too big for me. I ordered it like last year and I never got it. Like I never got to wear it because it's too big. But I want to make it smaller.
Oh, you want to show it off?
I got hem a little bit.
Well, now you're adding to the gimmick because now this new gimmick I'm doing is I'm gonna wear a new shirt every week. It's gonna be gone after every week, so I'm wearing the Manziel jersey today. Bless up to Manziel.
I actually made a mistake though because on my Patriots video I didn't change the jersey. So Predator, of course, got mad at me, and then when I was editing it, I didn't realize that I still had the Saquon jersey, like the Beckham jersey for the Saquon video. I forgot to change it to like the Ty Law jersey for the secondary video.
Damn.
Messed it up.
That is, the Giants have a nice classic jersey though. Their road classic jersey. I like.
Yeah. I do like the white. I don't like their blue jerseys.
Mm-hmm. It is weird though. Now he's gone from New York, so it's just a remembrance for OBJ. Okay, so we talked about Gerald McCoy while you were gone. You already talked about that. I don't think you need to add anything to that.
No.
But Jermaine Kearse signing with the Lions. What do you think about that?
I think that's pretty big because when I looked at the Lions depth chart, I think one of their flaws was just having depth at the wide receiver position. We saw last season, of course, they lost Golden Tate and they had injuries to Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones, and their whole offense just couldn't succeed without the receivers. So this season, they add Danny Amendola to the mix, but Jermaine Kearse is a nice guy to have on your team because not only can he play in the slot if Danny Amendola is injured or can spare in with Danny Amendola, but he can also play on the outside. So he has some kind of flexibility to his game. So he can play in any spot. So if Golladay goes down, Kearse can fill in there. If Amendola goes down, he can fill in there. And basically, I think it just adds a nice complement to all the other receivers and adds a little bit of depth because the Lions have needed depth at that spot. That was one of my concerns coming into the season, that if one of those guys do go down, they don't have a nice backup to back them up, but now they do.
Yeah.
He has been a little inconsistent, though. That's my concern.
Kearse, I think, has been pretty good over the last 2 years. He's just been on the Jets, which, I mean, nobody really watches the Jets because they're not very good.
Yeah, but
also he's been with an inconsistent quarterback for most of the time.
Yeah.
I actually think Jermaine Kearse 2 seasons ago was probably his best season ever.
Yeah, that's what I brought up, is the fact that he had a really good last year or the year before that. But last year, I think it was just kind of the fact that Sam Darnold lost, like, he focused on certain receivers. Some guys just got lost in the shuffle, and I think Jermaine Kearse was one of them. So, yeah.
Yeah, like as a fourth receiver, as a guy that you're not signing to much money, I think it's a great signing.
Do we have the contract details? Do you know what those are?
It's a 1-year deal.
It is a 1-year deal worth $1.35 million.
That's cheap. That's easy money right there. That's even better, honestly. Like, just for a depth guy, I'd be.
Yeah, like 2 seasons ago, he had 65 catches for 810 yards and 5 touchdowns.
It's worth it if you get that production for $1.3 million. I'd sign it up every day and twice on Sundays. Like, give me that kind of content. Again, this, like you said, it's for depth. I mean, they've got the receivers, so you just need to be healthy, and they added Hawkinson, the tight end, with the 8th pick. So, not mad about it. Not mad about it for sure.
Also, just adding to this point, I don't know if you guys brought this up, but Darrell Bevel is their offensive coordinator, so there's probably some connection there and carryover with the offense. So Jermaine Kearse has obviously some recognition of the offense, but probably Bevel was the one who put in a good word for Kearse to get him to sign with the team.
Good point. I didn't even think about that, honestly. I forgot about that. Interesting. All right, so there's our analysis on Jermaine Kearse. We have a couple more headlines before we get into our top 10 NFL offseasons list. Let's see here. Duke Johnson, he's been in the headlines a little bit recently for basically not wanting to be a part of the Browns anymore. Apparently, he feels that they have just moved on. They've gotten Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt's coming in halfway through the next season. He feels like they are just not wanting him, and he wants to be traded. He's been very vocal about it on Twitter. in training camp or mini camp, whatever it is. He's been very vocal about wanting to leave, which I find to be pretty interesting. He's a good talent. I think he can be used in certain situations. Certain teams can use him very well. And he has, put up some pretty good numbers as a member of the Browns, but it doesn't look like he wants to be there for 2019. I want to get your guys' opinions. Is it worth it? And where do you think Duke Johnson will end up? What do you guys think?
Kevo, go ahead first.
I think the bigger story in this to me isn't Duke Johnson. Actually, it's how Baker Mayfield's taking control of this team and saying, "Look, shut up and sit down." I don't know if Duke Johnson. I don't think that they're going to trade Duke Johnson. Don't think that they can. You've got the situation. We'll get into that probably a little bit later with Kareem Hunt. You don't know. I mean, I know that it's an 8-game suspension, but you don't know what you're going to get with Kareem Hunt when he comes back. So I think that that's a very big question mark. I understand, I guess, what he's wanting to do, that he wants more carries. But for me, I think what Baker Mayfield is saying, what Cleveland is saying, is just prove it on the field. Prove that you're better than Nick Chubb. And I'm not entirely convinced that if Cleveland is even going to trade Duke Johnson at this point, that you're going to get a lot. Is it even worth? I don't even think it's even worth it for Cleveland to even explore a trade, because you're not going to get running backs are not something that you're going to get a lot of value for back. So for me, I think Duke Johnson just needs to sit down, play football, prove he's better than Nick Chubb, prove that he's better than the carries that Nick Chubb has, and go into the season and play ball.
I don't think he wants to be there, though.
I don't think. Yeah,
I don't think he'll show up. So they might as well trade him at least for a 7th.
I don't even. Yeah, but is that worth it though?
No,
why not?
You're going to be cutting a loss either way. I think if you're trading him, but there's no sense in him just being on the bench, because it doesn't look like he wants to be there at all.
Yeah, and that may be, but I think from a player perspective, it's probably better for him to prove that he's better than what he's saying he is, and then teams will grab some interest in him. And maybe so, but yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe he doesn't want to be there, but I don't think just cutting bait and running is even as beneficial for the Browns or Duke Johnson at this point. Let's see what Duke Johnson can do.
Do you really want distractions on your football team, though? Because that's what he might end up being, as a distraction.
Probably, but you got to give Baker Mayfield some credit of saying, you know what, you're not going to be a distraction on this team. So for this, I'm not liking the distraction part of this, but I am liking the Baker Mayfield taking control of this team.
On the other side of that, though, when you look at it, like, Baker Mayfield's basically saying, imagine if this is Baker Mayfield. Like, this is going to turn around one day and Baker Mayfield's going to hold out because he's not getting enough money, or Odell might hold out because he's not getting enough money, or Jarvis might hold out, or Myles Garrett might hold out. And what is he going to say then? That's
the great question.
Right? So do you really go? I don't know if I really loved what Baker said. I understood why he said it. I understand why he said it, but at the same time, it's going to come back and haunt you in a way, because it's going to happen to you, or it's going to happen to a player that is maybe more important than Duke Johnson, and it's going to hurt your football team even more. So
that's on Baker.
As far as the teams that I think could go after him, I would say that, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they need a running back. Does anyone, Duke Johnson, he's not necessarily a bell cow running back, but he could certainly be added to the fold there and probably play some snaps there for sure. I think the team that makes the most sense to me is Atlanta, because Atlanta, although they have Devontae Freeman, they lost Tevin Coleman, and they don't really have that pass-catching type of third down running back, which was Tevin Coleman's role. So I feel like Duke Johnson would be perfect in that role if they went out and traded for him. Who else is there? I think Carolina could use a backup for sure, and especially because Christian McCaffrey, Duke Johnson plays a similar style to Christian McCaffrey, so I feel like that would be a good move for them. Who else?
I Can I throw in the Rams in this conversation?
Yeah, I was just going to say the Rams, but I don't know. Like they kind of seem pretty sold on their younger guys, but I guess they could. I don't really know the Todd Gurley situation. So.
I don't see. Yeah, nobody knows. Like, is he healthy? Is he ready to go? I don't know how much of an impact he's going to have next season. It's baffling to me. I think for me, it would be beneficial. I think Atlanta probably makes the most sense. You have Devontae Freeman, who's coming off an injury. We got to see what he's going to do. But having that kind of running back with Duke Johnson, who is much more of a receiving back. He had 47 catches, 429 yards, and 3 touchdowns receiving last year. Didn't run the ball very much. He had less rushes than
Didn't he have like 80 catches one year?
He had 93 in 2017.
93. Okay.
Holy shit. Oh, no, sorry. That's targets. 74.
Okay, 74.
74, 693 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's going to get the ball. He's going to be able to be that kind of running back. And I think Atlanta would be a big help. I think Todd Gurley and the Rams would use that very well. You said with the young running backs that they have, but I don't know how much they're going to play an impact. I don't know. And it probably would be pretty cheap too, to be honest with you. So I don't think it would be great for the Browns to just let him go. But if he doesn't want to play, it's a bigger distraction to keep him than to, leave him there. Yeah,
we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens as training camp and voluntary things happen here.
Yeah, we still got a couple more developments before we get into anything big with it. So I just found it really interesting that he's saying this now, especially with all the new moves that the Browns have made. I know it hurts his job because Kareem's coming in there, middle of the season, but it's very interesting. We'll kind of have to just wait and see how that goes. All right. We got a couple more headlines here. Kev brought this up in the chat, and I thought it was actually a very good topic, so we got to bring it up here. Roger Goodell is being considered to wanting 2 preseason games to start off the year and having an 18-game regular season. We've seen expansions throughout the league over the last, 40 years. It used to be 12 regular season games and then the playoffs. That's why the 1972 Dolphins, while it is perfect, it had 12 regular season games and then 3 playoff games. So 15-0, if you will. And then it was expanded to 16. I don't exactly remember when that was, but now they're considering 18 games. I personally
didn't the 72 Dolphins go 17-0?
Yeah, they had 12 regular season games, correct? Or was it 14?
No,
I think it was 14.
Okay, 14 regular season games and then the playoffs. So then, it's still not technically the 16-0 Patriots and then getting to the Super Bowl and all that stuff. But we're here, 18 games. I think it's a little much. The old saying is, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. There's no reason to fix it. I guess in a way there are beneficial reasons as to why preseason can be 2 weeks long. It gets the NFL season, a little bit quicker. Less injuries in the preseason if there's less games. Obviously, we see quite a bit of those every year, but you're never really going to fully take that away. What do you guys think? I'm not a big fan of this movement. I don't know how far this movement is, but I've heard this talk come up the last couple of years. So is there any beneficial reason do you guys like that this could be an 18-game season? Because the way schedules come out, obviously, is you face your own team, you face the top leaders in each division. You play one more NFC team, and then you play an AFC team, AFC division. So what do you guys think about that?
Do you want to start this one, Mitch? Or?
I don't really have too many thoughts, so I'm trying to put it in my head before I go. So you go ahead.
I understand from the player's perspective why they want to go down to 2. I from my personal viewing pleasure, I enjoy 4 preseason games because I like watching the backups. I like seeing what they're doing, like seeing what's out there. Some come up to Canada and play up here. You see some guys that were high draft picks that were quarterbacks that are backup quarterbacks. So it's interesting. And you hear some really interesting stories around the team. So I enjoy that. But I do understand from a player's perspective why they want to cut that down, the preseason down to 2 or 3. I would be open to 3. I'm not open to 18 games to myself. I think that's an extra buy. I don't know where you add that. Do you add that in the middle of August where it feels like NFL season should always be starting in September. I guess you could extend
the season.
Yeah, you'd have to make it to like the end of February.
Super Bowl could be in like March.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not.
What's
really,
the difference?
It just doesn't feel right.
It doesn't feel right, but then once it happens,
it'll go back to normal. But I
think
one
of the ideas that has been tossed out there, and I'm going to precurse this by saying that this is utterly ridiculous, but it's being tossed out there, is the idea that the Stars, everyone plays 16 games of the 18, and there's 2 games that they don't play. So as an example, Tom Brady takes a couple of games off and the backups play certain games. So they're still playing. The teams are still playing 16. The players are still playing 16.
No, that doesn't make sense.
Well,
that would never happen.
I think one of the dumbest ideas I have ever heard. But
that would never make sense because NFL teams want to play their best players. They want to win during the regular season. But I've always said that the preseason's too long. Because the starters barely play. I mean, it used to be that the third week was like the regular season sort of dress rehearsal, and now it's become the second week.
Yeah.
So I think it's at least 1 week too long, if not 2 weeks too long. Like maybe honestly, I would prefer if they just maybe add one more regular season game and take away 1 preseason game. Why can't we go in the middle? Like, do we have to add 2? Yeah. Like, I don't know. I don't mind it. Like, I don't really see a huge difference for the players in that regard. I don't really care. I just think from my perspective, more football is better for me. So I'm cool with that. Yeah. But like, in terms of the players, it doesn't make a huge difference. I don't know. Maybe if you're getting to that 18 game part of your schedule, there's more injuries. It's going to affect the playoffs maybe. Mm-hmm. But also if you have that bye, maybe if you have the second bye, maybe it's better for the player. So I think it's kind of something where you would have to at least try it before you actually get a sense of how it is. You know what I mean?
See, the thing is, we would be putting a second bye in here, which I would even increase the season even longer. I don't know. I feel like the preseason could be cut down. I'd be perfectly fine with that. Personally, my enjoyment comes from watching quarterbacks that are drafted very highly and watching their first game and real action and all that stuff. But that kind of wears out like week 3. And I'm just like, all right, let's get let's go. You know,
I'm into like week 1 seeing the backups, and then I'm a football fanatic, so I'm gonna be into it anyway. I'm gonna watch it. Yeah. But like for a casual football fan, they don't care. They might watch a little bit of the first preseason game, and then they'll watch the second preseason game to see the starters a little bit. And then after that, they don't give a crap.
And then they're like, let's
they're like, okay, let's get to my fantasy. And then we're going to go and we're going to get into predictions. We're going to watch YouTubers do their predictions. And then we're going to get in there and go to week number 1.
That's what we all want to get to. We just want to get to it. Maybe we just want to get to week number 1 quicker.
Well, but now the word and the term that is coming out now is because of Kawhi and the Raptors. And what they did, the Raptors did with Kawhi is absolutely brilliant. I'm not saying it's not, but the idea of this load management thing is going to be coming into as a professional sports term now. Maybe that's something that some people are thinking about, but I don't see how that would actually work legitimate. What happened with Kawhi, I don't think can work in the NFL. It's just 2 different sports.
Well, because you're playing 82 games in the NBA where you're allowed to take a couple of games off. And LeBron did this specifically.
LeBron does this all the time.
The term came up this year from him, right, mostly. I think you're allowed to do that because, it doesn't impact you. If you leave one game, if you're out one game, it's not the end of the world. NFL, if you take a game off, it could hurt your standings. You know what I mean? You have to be pretty in there. You have to have a pretty great record to be like, okay, we're going to take this guy off for 1 game. Even if it's, not the quarterback. If it's a receiver, that's important. It's not quite the same. Even baseball. Obviously, baseball guys get plenty of off days because it's 162 games. 16 games, or if we even bump it up to 18, it's pushing it there, personally. I don't know. I think the preseason could be pushed back. That's fine. I just don't want. I don't want more football like that. I'd be entertaining wise maybe, but I don't think it would benefit the NFL the way maybe they think it. I don't know. That's from my perspective.
I just think they need to get rid of the Pro Bowl. That's it. Just get rid of the Pro Bowl.
Well, please get rid of the Pro Bowl. The only reason that anybody was cool with going there is because it was in Hawaii, and now they're playing in Orlando. Like, who wants to go to Orlando and take the family there? Come on. Yeah. And again, actually, I'd be fine with the Pro Bowl if it was in the middle of the year. Like how baseball does it or basketball does it. Hockey, actually, any sport besides the NFL does it like that. It's strange. All right, so we talked about that. Let's get into one.
I want to say one thing.
All right, go ahead.
Get rid of the Pro Bowl. Get rid of the Pro Bowl and make it a skills challenge. Just make it a straight skills challenge. Okay? Just have the strongest arm, the most accurate quarterback, fastest player. That's what we really want to see.
Because everybody's so excited about this 40-yard dash coming up this month. That's a cool thing. They've been doing that stuff with the days before. So just keep that and don't give us the Pro Bowl, please. Last year's Pro Bowl was a freaking joke. Let's put everybody on defense.
Every Pro Bowl for the past ever has been a joke.
This one was so bad.
Yeah.
It was even worse. And then maybe it's just the fact that Jason Witten called Eric Ebron Patrick Mahomes' favorite target. Thank you very much.
That would be entertaining if the Pro Bowl was just Mahomes and Josh Allen trying to throw it farther than each other.
Well, they used to do that. Give me the Brett Favre days.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. John.
What if we had a gimmick this year? They had Rodgers versus Stafford in a beer chug. That'd be phenomenal.
But they all know that they can't beat me. Freaking Rodgers, how? I'd be entertained personally. The world would go on fire. They'd be like, "Oh my God, Aaron Rodgers!"
Imagine the ratings for a quarterback beer chug challenge.
Because everybody would be like, "Huh, this is interesting. I can relate to this." Boom, let's chug some beers. I'd be down for that personally. But we gotta say, Rodgers. I think 6 or 7 quarterbacks have been in this challenge. Rodgers is definitely at the bottom.
Then also, if you get named to the Pro Bowl, you don't actually have to get replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not an actual game, so nobody's gonna be like, "Oh, I'm hurt. I don't want to play." Then we get to the point nowadays where it's Andy Dalton has been named to the Pro Bowl, the 17th quarterback, and then and this is why it's important. And then you go to the Hall of Fame, and when you're looking at the Hall of Fame resume, they're like, "Oh, this guy made 8 Pro Bowls." Well, he actually only made 3, but 5 times he was an alternate.
That's depressing. I didn't think about it that way. Yeah, it has gotten really bad because honestly, when I was looking last year and I saw Mitch Trubisky and Dak Prescott both make the NFC roster, I was like, "What? What? What are we doing here? Why?" Seriously, and they both accepted to go. Okay, whatever.
A defensive end arm wrestling challenge. JJ Watt versus Donald.
I actually watched the wrestling segment with that this week, with Strowman and Lashley, because I enjoyed that stuff. I actually like that kind of segment. So, maybe I'm down for it.
And then the winner faces Scott Steiner.
Ooh, the big bad booty daddy. He cuts a whole promo. The NFL, whatever team he doesn't like, he's garbage, trash. Scott Steiner. Yeah, give me every Scott Steiner promo. You know what? Screw the promo.
Come on, Dylan. That's the guest that you're talking about for Bottom Line.
Yeah, that's the guest in 3 weeks.
If we got Scott Steiner, ratings would go through the roof.
The roof.
That's trash.
You put tables to your fat asses. Yeah. Guys, don't worry. We are getting that guest. It's not Scott Steiner. Give me Scott Steiner every day, though. All right, we got one more topic to discuss before we get into our top 10 off-seasons list video. Saquon Barkley had some interesting comments to say about Daniel Jones. I know it's beating a dead horse at this point, but he had to come and say this point, and Mitch brought this up as maybe we should talk about this. So, I find this quite interesting. Saquon said that we are all going to be, looking back like idiots because he's going to win 2 Super Bowls. Now, I have never laughed harder. The neighbors were calling. They're like, "Are you sure? Are you okay? I don't think you're clinically healthy if you're going to laugh that loud," because I woke everybody up. Daniel Jones is not the quarterback. Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls. Yes, he also had great defenses and had a great postseason run. He did not have
Eli Manning did not win 2 Super Bowls. The Giants did. And more, if you want to be actually specific, the defensive line won 2 Super Bowls, not Eli. Okay? Thank you.
Oh, and I'm going to add this. Can I add something?
Go ahead.
One of the poorest Super Bowl MVP selections, other than Malcolm Smith with the Seahawks, was Eli Manning for the Giants on the first one.
Thank you.
It should have been Justin Tuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I was going to say Strahan Tuck, a defensive lineman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was bad because that first defense, Tuck, we had Michael Strahan in his last game. Ossie Newman-Yor was there. So yeah. So he was freaking fantastic. And then you got Eli over here. But technically, this is not the point. This is the guy we're comparing to. And Daniel Jones, we already talked about. He's already been overpicked. He's got all this hype from the Giants organization, specifically Dave Gettleman. I don't know anybody else that's hyping him, but Dave Gettleman especially. And then this Giants organization is a joke. And I like Saquon. He's fantastic. He's coming in here probably the best running back in the league. But, bro.
Future GOAT.
I get that he's trying to
– plug.
I get that he's trying to do what Jalen Ramsey did last year, where Jalen Ramsey went
He's just defending his quarterback. And in another way, he's also saying, you never know. He could be saying that, but he could also be saying, because I'm going to win 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah. Wait,
that's what he's saying. Think about it.
Yeah, I get what he's saying. But
I don't take this as like, oh my gosh, he thinks Daniel Jones is the greatest quarterback of all time or anything like that. I'm just thinking like, you may change your mind if he wins a couple of championships.
And he's also just backing his guy up, which is what the leader does on this team.
Which is fine, and I'm not mad with him saying it. I just find this as a hilarious comment because it ain't going to happen.
It's funny. I mean, it's not going to happen.
It ain't going to happen.
But
especially with all the Giants debacle that we have right now. I mean, is it going to get any better?
Oh, that's a debacle right there.
Yeah, that was a debacle. There was a fucking fly flying around. Yeah, I feel the NFC East is the 3-team division, at this point in time. Will it change? I don't know. But I appreciate that we have a 33 and thirds chance of winning the division. All right, let's get into these lists, guys. I think this is going to be an interesting list here.
I'm going to go grab mine, so get someone else to do it first.
Okay, get somebody to go. Kev, I'll let you go first here. So what this is a top 10 off seasons for the NFL teams throughout the course or throughout the league. This includes free agency and draft. So it's not just who did the best in free agency or who had the best draft. This is a combination of both. So if one team struggled in getting big-time players but had a great draft, I put them on this list. I put them somewhere in there. If they did a great job in free agency, but their draft was not that great, I'd still put them on the list, maybe just a little bit lower. It depends on how big of a signing they got. Also, I considered how many depth pieces they added. So even if there wasn't a huge signing like Le'Veon Bell, by the way, the Jets are not on my list, so I'm going to use them as an example. So maybe they got somebody like they didn't get Le'Veon Bell as a big player, but they did get a whole bunch of guys to fill in certain roles and bring in key pieces. I consider that more higher on my list than having a big signing. So, yeah, the Jets aren't on my list because I just think they overpaid for Le'Veon Bell and C.J. Mosley, 2 big pieces that we talked about a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. So, Kev, I am very interested to hear your list. We're going to go straight up. Just you go through 10 through 1, and then I'll go through my list, and then Mitch's last. So.
Okay, so the way that I looked at this, I also added, and when I did this, subtractions. And the objective of this is to get to the Super Bowl. So that's also something I considered. And so my list is really, for the most part, teams that I do see at least contending for a playoff spot. So but I did want to point out something. I don't know if this is on Dylan's list, and I don't know if this is on Mitch's list, but I do want to bring up my honorable mention. My honorable mention may get a little bit of a laughter, but it is the Arizona Cardinals because they did have a really strong draft. They they got a guy in Terrell Suggs that if he is willing to be the Terrell Suggs that we all know and love in Baltimore, I think is going to be a big help. And if Kyler Murray is more on the Baker Mayfield side than the Jamarcus Russell side, they will do a lot better than people think. So I have the Arizona Cardinals as my number 11 on this.
I'm going to be honest with you. They're really high on my list.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so I was like, I wonder if people were like,
no, I'm definitely down for this. I agree. Go ahead.
Okay, my number 10 was the Green Bay Packers.
Fair.
And it's not so much that they got Preston Smith and they got Zaquan Smith. I think a lot of what they lost may actually, the subtractions will help them. Dom Capers is the Darrell Bevel of defensive coordinators in that he probably is a good defensive coordinator. He just needs to be in a different place. I think he was in Green Bay for far too long. I think the loss of Clay Matthews, I think, is also going to be beneficial for the Green Bay Packers. They got a little bit younger. This is the opportunity that Aaron Rodgers has to prove that he doesn't need Mike McCarthy. I'm not overly convinced about Matt LaFleur and Mike Pettin. I'm a little cautious about that. So that's why I have them a little bit lower. So I have the Green Bay Packers as number 10. Number 9, and I wonder if you guys are going to have them higher than I do. I bet you are. I have the Cleveland Browns as number 9. I think, of course, they had the sexiest moves with with OBJ and Sheldon Richardson, and all of the stuff that they've done was great. But I have 2 concerns with the Browns going forward. I'm not sure about Freddie Kitchens as a head coach, and the Kareem Hunt acquisition, if he is not healthy halfway through the season or needs to be some changes, holds that back a little bit. But it's obvious they had a great offseason. They had
so you put them at 9?
Hear me out as I go. It's in terms of where I think you have to go, which is the objective is the Super Bowl, and taking everything into account. That's why. Number 8, I have the Tennessee Titans because of their draft. They were another team that had a really strong draft, and I really like that trade of Ryan Tannehill. And I will make a bold prediction. One of my bold predictions is I think Ryan Tannehill may start at some point this year.
Wow. Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, he might be starting because Mariota can never stay on the field.
That's partly it, but I think Ryan Tannehill is a better quarterback than what we saw in Miami. So I had, that's why I had them there, and I do think that in that AFC South, it's an interesting division where they can compete for a playoff spot. Number 7 may be a bit of a surprise to some people, but I think that the way that all things considered, that when we were going into the draft, we all thought the Washington Redskins would implode. There would be like last night in Boston. I don't know if you saw that, Dylan. The fans were fighting each other. That's what we thought was going to happen in Washington, but they had a really strong draft. I really like picking up Dwayne Haskins. I think Case Keenum is an efficient pickup. Montez Sweat. They did a really good job turning this team around. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to be a playoff team. I think they're in tough because of the division that they're in. But I think that they can. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Dwayne Haskins can do. I think he's going to be a lot better than Daniel Jones is for now. I think he'll get off to a better start. Yes. So that's why I have them at number 7. Number 6, I put in the Buffalo Bills.
Absolutely.
They really improved on their line of scrimmage. Their receiver core isn't sexy or anything like that, but it's some really solid receivers that I think is going to allow Josh Allen to do more of what Josh Allen can do. And they're going to dominate on both sides of the ball on the line of scrimmage, offensive and defensive line. So that's why I had that. Number 5, I have the Denver Broncos.
You're a little bit higher on the Broncos than previously.
I think the acquisition of the Vic Fangio for Vance Joseph just makes this much better. I think that the trade that they made with the Steelers in the draft was my favorite trade, because it helped both teams. They got Flacco. I'm not sold on Flacco, but they were able to get a whole bunch of other things done that I think that they're going to be a little better than people think. So that's why I had them there. Number 4, they may have been a little bit conservative. We just talked about them not getting in the Gerald McCoy things, but they were able to keep their team long-term, lock up long-term, and they made some smart acquisitions, and that was the Indianapolis Colts. The acquisition of Justin Houston, I think, is going to help. Devin Funchess is going to help. They were already a strong team that they didn't have to do a lot. Andrew Luck is going to be healthier this year, so they didn't blow up everything. They kept the course. Solid draft, good pickups. That's why I had them at number 4. Number 3, I had the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Ooh, this is interesting.
I think that a lot of that has to do with a good draft, and I think a lot of it has to do with subtraction. I think that they'll be a better team without Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell causing distractions there. They will, like Green Bay, they will allow this is Ben's team for sure. They're trusting in Ben. I'm really a big fan of Jalen Samuels, Juju Smith-Schuster. I think their defense is going to be better, and I think it's just going to be a breath of fresh air in what's going on at Pittsburgh. Number 2, I flipped and flopped on this. This is almost like a 1A, 1B. But number 2, I ended up deciding ultimately the New England Patriots, because they don't do anything amazing. They just do things. They get the right people that fit the right spot. They improve their secondary. They improve their wide receivers. They had a great draft. They're just continuously efficient. But the objective of this is to win the Super Bowl, and the New England Patriots did not put themselves in any position where they could not win the Super Bowl. So that's why I had them at number 2. Yeah. Ultimately, I put the Philadelphia Eagles as number 1.
To be fair, Kev, could they do anything to not win the Super? Like, would they just release Tom Brady? Like, is that
Tom Brady leaves, Bill Belichick
retires,
and
like that's how they don't put themselves in a position. And just to be fair, like I'm totally with you. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, they don't have to do they don't do anything dumb though. Even if you lose Brady and Belichick, like you don't like. To me, it wasn't always about the sexy picks that people did. It was about, like, how are you building your team to build into championship football? So that's why it's building around and knowing what you have. But ultimately, because I think the extending of Carson Wentz, I think puts the Philadelphia Eagles into not only being a Super Bowl contender this year, and they had a great draft. They got Jordan Howard. Them and the Patriots are doing some really good, interesting things with running backs, in that they're picking up running backs and using a lot of them. And I think a lot of teams are going to be following suit on that. But the ultimate extending Carson Wentz, that has them not only to be a contender this year, but for years to come, as long as Carson Wentz is healthy, of course. I will precurse that. So ultimately, just by a little bit, I had the Eagles as having the best offseason, but you can flip a coin between the Eagles and the Patriots.
Interesting list, Kevo. I like your reasonings. I only have one team on your list that isn't on mine, I believe. So I find that quite interesting. The Browns at number 9, it's still a question, but I understand where you're coming from. So I like the list. I did like the list. And for me personally, I had to flip-flop back and forth in terms of, like, the rankings of this list quite a bit. Like, even in the middle of your rankings, I'm like, okay, I'm going to flip this team or whatever. So it kind of just depends on everybody's personal preference on these certain signings, these certain draft picks. And what I liked about your list compared to mine is you took into the losses as well, and I didn't really think about that. So, all right, I'll get in my top 10 list, and then we'll have Mitch here. Number 10, we have those Indianapolis Colts. I really like what they did in terms of low-key signings. They signed Justin Houston, which I think is going to be a nice acquisition. I know he's been pretty unhealthy in the last couple of years, but if you get the Justin Houston that everyone loves, he's going to be fantastic. Devin Funchess, I think, is a lot of money. $13 million is pretty crazy for 1 year and for a guy like Devin Funchess. But again, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but I still think he can help. Plus, Dontrell Inman is gone, so he replaces that fill. Spencer Ware is also with the Colts now. I think he can add a little bit of depth to their running back core. And I think their draft was okay. They didn't have a whole lot of picks, but I think Rock Ya-Sin, their cornerback that they drafted in the second round, very early in the second round, was a very underrated draft pick, and I think is going to help their team. Plus, they have a whole lot of money if they want to do something later on. So, really like what the Colts did. Very low-key signings. That's why I have them here at number 10. Number 9, I have the Denver Broncos, a team that I think is going to be one of the more interesting ones to see develop over the course of the year. Or are they going to be a team fighting for a playoff spot? I want to see them pick up because I think their 6-10 record last year was a very sloppy 6-10 record. You know, they had certain games where they could win, but certain games I was just like, I'm not feeling with their overall chemistry. And they had a little stretch towards the end of the year, but they weren't able to finish it. But with their free agency, first they got Joe Flacco. I don't think he's going to be the greatest in the world, but he is going to be like a placeholder for now. And I think he can help with leadership. And plus, I think he has a good chemistry with John Elway. So that's a good thing. They drafted their quarterback, their future franchise quarterback, I think, with Drew Lock, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but considering he was the 41st pick in the draft and a lot of people were having him in the top 10, I think it's a great buck for your bang for your buck, if you will. They got Kareem Jackson from the Texans, I think was a great signing as well. They also got Bryce Callahan, and they drafted Noah Fant, the other tight end from Iowa, who isn't as good as Hockenson, but I still think he's a good talent. And I really like that they added that. I've kind of come around to that after the draft. I wasn't a big fan, but I think for the Broncos system, he does well. So I have him here at number 9. At number 8, I have those Carolina Panthers, who I think are going to be an interesting team to look forward to in 2019 with their division. Of course, they just got Gerald McCoy a couple of days ago. Thank you for adding to the list. Matt Paredes, I think, is a great center signing. They did sign Chris Hogan, who, if you guys watched last year, and I know Mitch did as well, wasn't the greatest in his position. I did not think he did play particularly well, but he could come in here and revive his career. Who knows? Brian Burns, I think, was a great draft pick by the Panthers. I think he's going to do well. And then, of course, Will Grier. I mean, who doesn't love Will Grier? I don't think that one's great. But I still think overall they did add to their team, again, that I think is quite underrated. And getting guys like Gerald McCoy and Matt Paredes, I think were big free loads in there. And then just a couple of extra guys to add in there as well, as along with Bruce Irvin. So I have them here at number 8. Around here is where I kind of flip-flop some of my teams. So at number 7, I have the Green Bay Packers. I think they did a good job of helping their defense specifically. We really thought, okay, they're going to get this receiver. They're going to go and need to get a receiver. But they never really addressed that, so maybe that's why they're here. But they did get a lot of pieces for their defense. Adrian Amos, I think, being their biggest one. They got Zadarius Smith on the edge. And then I think their first 2 draft picks, I'm really liking. Rashawn Gary, I think, was a great pick. I was not expecting them to pick him when we did the live draft reactions, but when they got him, I was like, you know what? I'm coming around to it. I really like what they did there. And then Darnell Savage, I think, may have been picked a little high, but I think he fits the Packers system very well, and I think that's why they got him here. So I'm not very mad about that. I got to be supportive of this pick here. So number 7, I got the Green Bay Packers. Number 6, I have them a little bit lower than Kev had them. At number 2, I have them in here number 6, the Patriots. I think they had a lot of underrated low-key signings that I think a lot of people should look at. First off, they got Michael Bennett. I really like that. They got Dontrell Inman for a 1-year contract. Wide receiver depth, always good. Jamie Collins is back with the team. Who doesn't love a little Jamie Collins? And Amarius Thomas. He has been bouncing around. Obviously, he was with the Texans. He tore his ACL. If he's healthy, he can add to this team. He can help him in a couple of ways. And then their draft, I think they had 2 really good draft picks. N'Keal Harry, I think at 32, man, that's something. He was the only receiver drafted in the first round, and I didn't think he was going to be the first one, but he definitely has the talent, and I think with the Patriots system, I think they got a steal here at 32. And then Chase Winovich from Michigan, I think, was a great pick in the 3rd round that I think is going to add to this team. So with the combination of getting some guys that they used to have, obviously, with Jamie Collins, versus a little bit of depth, and then having their 2 really good draft picks, I really like what they did here. So I got them at number 6. Number 5, I have the Buffalo Bills. I think what their whole goal was to try to get Josh Allen some targets. They did so. They got Cole Beasley and John Brown. Not the greatest talent in the world, but at least helping them out, considering what they had last year was absolutely garbage. We had Frank Gore coming in here, the man that will never retire, the running back that will never retire, but he will definitely help their run game with LaShawn McCoy. I think that's a big bonus. Tyler Kroft, I think, is a decent signing and not the greatest tight end in the world, but can help them out. Mitch Morse, I think, was great. And then in their draft, getting Ed Oliver, fantastic pick, I think will be maybe the best, if not the second best defensive player in this entire draft class. When it gets down to it. So I really like what they did. Again, I think all of us had them on their underrated teams list. I think they're a very good team coming in, and I'm excited to see what they do in 2019. And based on what they did in the offseason, I'm liking it. At number 4, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. I really like what the Eagles did here. Even as a Cowboys fan, I think they did some really good stuff. They got back to Deshaun Jackson, which if he can get the explosiveness that he had, boom, you're in there. You got great stuff going forward. Malik Jackson was a heck of a steal, in my opinion, from the Jaguars. Just got him for basically nothing. It was great stuff there. Andrew Sendejo is pretty underrated in his acquisition. Andre Dillard is going to be the next, replacing Jason Peters. I think that's a very solid draft pick there. Miles Sanders, the running back. We talked about Jordan Howard and how that was a great pickup, and I got to agree with that. But getting Miles Sanders in the second round was a big bonus as well. And also J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in the third round, one of the least talked about wide receiver prospects when it comes to this draft, but I think very underrated. And in the third round, they could definitely add a little bit of pieces to the receiver core. So I really like that pickup as well. Overall, just looking for the future in Dillard, Sanders, and Whiteside, and also getting some really good talent with Malik Jackson and Deshaun Jackson. So good stuff there from the Eagles. Really like what they did. And by far the best offseason of the NFC East, with the Redskins being second. At number 3, I went with the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are always a team that I feel is this 9-7 record or 8-8 record. Like they're right in this borderline, are they going to fail or are they going to make the playoffs, whatever it is. But I think they had some really interesting signings that are going to help this team. And they did quite a bit. They got Adam Humphries, which I was very happy with that signing. I think they really needed a guy like Adam Humphries at their wide receiver position. Ryan Tannehill, again, it's a huge backup. It's a huge insurance policy in case Mariota A, sucks, or B, is injured like he is 90% of the time. So while I don't think Tannehill's the greatest quarterback in the world, he can do something. He can fill that role in fine. Roger Saffold, he played for the Rams. He played pretty well, and I think that was a big loss for the Rams, but a nice gain for the Titans on their offensive line. They got Cameron Wake, which I thought was a great underrated signing. And then they drafted Jeffrey Simmons, who is probably not going to play this year, but I think is one of the more underrated guys from that first-round class. And I think when he comes into the league in his second year, I think he will be a very good player on the defensive line. So I think the Titans, what they didn't get all the headlines, but they definitely filled some needs that they needed in the offseason. So that's why I have him here at number 3. Number 2, Kev, you had them as your honorable mention. I have them here at number 2. The Arizona Cardinals. I really like what they did here in this offseason. I'm a huge fan of what they did. Not basically in terms of just their offseason with free agency, but with their draft, I think was tremendous. They got Marcus Gilbert. These first couple ones are obviously with the free agency. Marcus Gilbert from the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think was a good signing. They got Robert Alford, which I think is going to definitely help them out. Terrell Suggs, he is quite old. He's getting up there. It kind of feels weird that he's not going to be in the Ravens jersey. Whatever, but he's still a great talent. If he can put up any numbers, and he still had a really good year last year. So if he can put up those kind of numbers, I'll be down for it. But their draft, I think, is what puts them here at number 2. Kyler Murray, you got your franchise quarterback. You got the best quarterback in the draft. You're looking at this from the future. I think it was tremendous. Obviously, it was the number 1 pick, no doubt about it. Byron Murphy, I think he was picked in the 33rd pick in the draft, I believe. And some people are not high on Byron Murphy. I am. I think he was a great draft pick here. And then you got 2 really good wide receivers that were pushed way back in the draft, way farther than I thought they were going to. Andy Isabella and Akeem Butler, especially Akeem Butler. I was really expecting him to be a borderline first-round pick, and he got picked, I believe, 4th round. It was pretty crazy. So what you're doing there is you're getting your quarterback, you're getting your offense set with all these great offensive weapons with Kyler Murray, and then having Andy Isabella and Akeem Butler, fantastic stuff there. And then, of course, with including their free agency, I thought they did a pretty damn good job. So that's why I have them here number 2. And number 1, who could it possibly be? It's the Cleveland Brownies, okay? When you get OBJ for nothing, you're going to be number 1. I'm sorry, Kev. I think you get OBJ, one of the best receivers, and not the best receiver in the game. It's a huge help to your offense. It makes your offense that much more dynamic, that much more explosive, and just getting them for nothing is the best part about it. Kareem Hunt's going to be added to this team halfway through the year. If he is healthy and if he plays like the Kareem Hunt that we saw last year, I'm not going to talk about his personal stuff, but if he plays like that kind of player, holy crap, you got a running back. Olivier Vernon got from the Giants. Fantastic trade. I really like that. Sheldon Richardson, pretty cheap contract. And Greedy Williams in the second round as their draft pick, their biggest draft pick. They didn't have a whole lot in the draft, but in terms of Greedy Williams, I really like that they got him here, and I think it was a steal. So for them to get OBJ, if they get the player that they want, no more trouble, Kareem Hunt, Olivier Vernon, Sheldon Richardson for pretty cheap, and Greedy Williams, I mean, to me, that's got to be the best offseason in the draft or in the league. So number 1, Browns. To give you a recap here, I had 10, the Indianapolis Colts, 9, the Denver Broncos, 8 was the Carolina Panthers, 7, the Green Bay Packers, 6, the New England Patriots, 5, the Buffalo Bills, 4, Philadelphia Eagles, 3, the Tennessee Titans, 2, Arizona Cardinals, and number 1, the Cleveland Brownies.
Yo, my webcam is messing up.
Oh, no. No. That is not good.
Oh, no, it just disconnected and then it reconnected. So I'm going to come back in, but maybe just give a little bit more on your guys' off seasons, why you put the teams there.
Well, for me, my one critique of the Arizona Cardinals is I actually think that they could have traded down and got more picks and still got Kyler Murray.
I don't agree. What would you trade down for? Like where?
There was nobody. Frisco, Oakland. Who else was over there?
Oakland was considered to take him. They had some thoughts about him. I think it would have been too much of a risk because it's the same thing with Saquon. Like the Giants could have drafted a quarterback last year in a very heavy loaded quarterback class, but they took the best talent on the field.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with what the Giants did. I think Arizona. They didn't have to drop too far, but there could have been a couple of opportunities. But they're in an interesting position for sure.
I think the reason I put them at number 2 is because they set themselves up for the future in such a big impact. You know what I mean? I don't know if it will be seen this year as much. I think they could win 4 or 5 games, but going into the future with getting your franchise quarterback with 2 great wide receiver talents, in my opinion, and then having underrated pieces, that's why I had them so high. I can understand where you're coming from, but that's just why I had to put them there.
Yeah, and I'm not convinced. I'm still not sold on Kingsbury myself, but.
Fair. That's absolutely fair. I think a lot of people actually aren't sold because it's a new system, it's a new style. Obviously, he coached in college and didn't even have the greatest record there. So we'll see how it blends. But I think he got his quarterback. And I think that's the greatest pick that he could have had because obviously he wanted him when he was in college. Now he gets to have him in the NFL. So there you go. All right, Mitch, go ahead. I'm going to find my cord to charge my computer while you do so.
I think a lot of teams in the NFL had a really good offseason. So I have 3 different honorable mentions, and some of the teams, I think all of the teams made both of your lists. Maybe not both of your lists, but at least one of your lists. So the honorable mentions, the Buffalo Bills for not doing anything outlandish or very bold, but making a lot of depth moves, like adding a ton to their offensive line, with 2 or 3 different offensive line starters, plus adding some depth to that position, getting a new starting tight end in Tyler Kroft, adding another tight end in the draft, adding 2 more receivers to help out Josh Allen, adding a young running back behind LaShawn McCoy, as well as an old running back in Frank Gore, getting Ed Oliver in the draft, who I think was an absolute great pick where they got him, and just overall having a plan, executing it, knowing where their deficiencies were last year, wide receiver, weapons in general, and offensive line, and going out and making some moves. Nothing that was game-changing or game-breaking, but at least making moves there that's going to help your team right away, but not breaking the bank. So that's an honorable mention. Indianapolis Colts, they made some really nice moves, but again, very small moves. Outside the Justin Houston move, nothing they did was going to break the bank, or nothing was going to necessarily hurt their team for the future if it doesn't work out. But I think Devin Funchess was a very under-the-radar move that nobody's really talked about, but I think he can excel in Indianapolis. And I think he can be that nice number 2 to T.Y. Hilton, as well as Paris Campbell, who they drafted. They recognized they had deficiencies at second, third, fourth receiver, and they went out there. They added some players to that position. They added Justin Houston. They added some depth on their defense just in general. And I think Brock Ya-Sin was a really nice pick at corner. And then also the Arizona Cardinals. They're very high on Dylan's list. I don't know about that, just because I don't think that they necessarily made many moves that are going to impact this season. But the reason why they're an honorable mention is because I could see this being a draft and an offseason that impacts their future. I think Kyler Murray is going to be a stud. I do like Andy Isabella. I like Hakeem Butler. So I think those players will turn out to be at least decent players. They added a little bit to their offensive line, although I would have liked to seen them add a little bit more. Marcus Gilbert being the big signing there for them. Defensively, I think they had a really underrated defensive offseason. They added Zach Allen in the draft, who I think can start right away, or at least help them right away. Byron Murphy can start or help them right away. Jordan Hicks is going to be one of their best players right away. DJ Swearinger is included in this mix because he did not really play for them last year, so I would add him to the mix, and Robert Alford is also going to play for them right away. So they got like 4 or 5 different defensive starters this offseason, so that's definitely worthy of an honorable mention, if not being on the list. So those are the 3 teams that are my honorable mentions. Now, going into number 10, I know some people are going to get a little bit mad at me for this one, but I have to say that if the goal of an offseason is to get better, then the Oakland Raiders got better. Did they not? I mean, just look at who they have on their team. I mean, they added Antonio Brown, who's one of the best receivers in the league. They added Tyrell Williams, who's better than any receiver they had last year. Hunter Renfrow, they also added in the draft. J.J. Nelson, they added as well. So they added a lot of talent at the wide receiver position. Basically a whole new wide receiver core. Then they added, I know, Richie Incognito, but he's probably going to start. And he replaces Kelechi Osemele. They added Trent Brown, who may be worth the money. Maybe he's not worth the money, but he's going to instantly be an impact player for them no matter what, because he's going to start. And I think he'll be effective at right tackle for them. Josh Jacobs is their new running back. They added Furl in the draft, very high. They added Jonathan Abram, which I think was a great pick at safety. They also added LaMarcus Joyner at safety. They added Vontaze Burfict and Brandon Marshall at linebacker. So they got better. I understand that some people may hate these moves or these players, more importantly, but I think they got better. So that's why they're at number 10. At number 9, the Detroit Lions. This is a team that I've been all over this offseason as a team that's going to be a lot better this year. But let's start off with their offensive coordinator. They added Darrell Bevell. I think that's probably going to be better off than where they were last year in terms of just Jim Bob Cooter. I don't think was the direction that Matt Patricia as the head coach wants to take this team. And I think Darrell Bevell as a more run-oriented coordinator is going to get the most out of this offense. They added Danny Amendola for both leadership and playing ability in the slot. They added Jermaine Kearse to the wide receiver core. TJ Hawkinson, I really love that pick. They also added Jesse James, maybe for a little bit too much money, but he's on the team nonetheless. Then you look at the defense. They added arguably the best player in free agency in Trey Flowers. They added also Justin Coleman to the corner group, who's going to instantly be their slot corner. Austin Bryant in the draft. Tavai in the draft at linebacker. I think they had a solid draft and a very good free agency. So I would put them on the list here at number 9. I would have liked to seen them make maybe more moves. They made like a few moves, but they were very impactful. But maybe I would have liked to seen them add a couple more depth pieces, but they have a lot of draft picks. The Tennessee Titans are at number 10. They had a very similar free agency to the Lions in terms of just a few moves, but the moves that they made were impactful. You look at it in terms of Roger Saffold at left guard, who is going to be a huge upgrade to that position. Adam Humphries, who's a super underrated slot receiver. Then you go to the defensive side of the ball. They added Cameron Wake to help out their pass rush and also help bring along Harold Landry as a pass rusher and as kind of being his mentor. Then also, in the draft, I think they had a solid draft, adding A.J. Brown, adding as well Jeffrey Simmons. So overall, I think the Titans, they put all the pieces in place. And of course, Ryan Tannehill, as both of you guys have brought up, which I think was an awesome move, especially for how much they got him. Usually a quarterback like Ryan Tannehill with winning experience in the NFL usually gets more money on the market, but he did not. He got a pretty reasonable contract. So overall, the Titans have all the pieces in place to be a playoff team. They just need to get the production from their quarterback. At number 7, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers, I think, had a really good free agency, especially defensively, adding both the Smith brothers to their pass rush, which is an instant upgrade from Clay Matthews and Nick Perry. Rashawn Gary in the draft, who's going to be, at the very least, a rotational player in year 1, but arguably a starter. And then they have Mike Daniels and Kenny Clark to go along with that, which is going to be a dominant front 7 this season. And then they added Adrian Amos, which Dylan raved about a little bit earlier, but he is going to be huge for their secondary, and him and Darnell Savage in the back end playing safety for them, along with Josh Jones, is going to be very intriguing to watch, because both of those guys are super speedy. They have great range to cover up, just deep passes. I don't think they'll be giving up a lot of deep plays, especially if their corners come along from last season. And then offensively, they did add Billy Turner to the offensive line, which was desperately needed. I would have liked to have seen, as Dylan said, to bring in a wide receiver, but they did add Jace Sternberger at tight end to kind of complement Jimmy Graham. So we'll see how their offense plays, but they do have Aaron Rodgers, so it should at least be decent overall. But they finally went all out on the defensive side of the ball, and that's what I was looking for them to do the most. So that's why they come in here at number 7. At number 6, the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos had one of the most underrated off seasons because they added 2 offensive linemen, which was a major weakness to their team last year. Dalton Reisner in the draft, and then they picked up Jawan James, who's a very solid tackle from Miami. They also, added their future quarterback, which is huge, Drew Lock, in a steal of a pick. I would rather have Drew Lock in the 2nd round. I would have rather picked Drew Lock over freaking Daniel Jones. So, that's a solid pick to me. I don't think Joe Flacco is as bad as everybody says. I think he can do something for this team. At the very least, he's going to be, like Dylan said, he's gonna play there for 1 or maybe 2 seasons, and then Drew Lock's gonna take over. But maybe, Joe Flacco in a new situation. We've seen this guy win before and take teams to the playoffs. And with a good defense, he could possibly do that again. Who knows? Jermonte Jones was a solid pick on the defensive line. And I really like what they did in their secondary. They added Kareem Jackson and Bryce Callahan, 2 really good players that I think can add flexibility to their new head coach, which I think is an upgrade over their old head coach, Vic Fangio. So that, again, is a great offseason. At number 5, the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers, they added Deebo Samuel at wide receiver, who I think is going to be like the next Jarvis Landry type of player. And by the way, shout out to Wes Welker, who's running sprints with Deebo Samuel. That's absolutely amazing. Okay, then you got on their offense, they added Tevin Coleman to the running back group, who I think is going to, at the very least, he's going to be a compliment to what they already have. But if not, he might be the starter there. And we already know how efficient he was inside the scheme of Kyle Shanahan offensively. They added Nick Bosa, who was arguably the best player in the draft. Dee Ford, who was the most disruptive pass rusher in 2018, to their defensive line, which they really needed defensive line help and pass rush help. And they got one of the top ones in the league now in a course of one offseason. And they added Quan Alexander at linebacker, who's a speedy player, which they really needed a middle linebacker, especially after the whole Foster situation. They really needed somebody to come in and replace him, and Quan Alexander is going to be a huge upgrade at that spot. And also the X factor of their offseason, Jason Verrett. If this guy is healthy, they could have a Pro Bowl caliber corner on their hands for very cheap. So I liked the 49ers offseason a lot. At number 4, Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers aren't going to get a ton of attention. They're going to get more attention for what they've done recently by adding Gerald Mccoy. But they added McCoy, but they also added Brian Burns in the draft. They added Bruce Irvin from free agency. And that's creating their best defensive line they've had in quite a while, which in 2015, that was their strength of their team. They did get rid of or retired Julius Peppers. He's retired now. So essentially Burns and Irvin are replacing Julius Peppers. But they still have Mario Addison. They have Quan Short. They have McCoy. They have Poe. That's a very strong defensive line. So they added to what they already have. I think Christian Miller was a sneaky pick in the draft. I think it was in the 3rd round. They got a backup quarterback in Will Grier. As much as I hate him, I said he's going to be a solid backup. So they got a solid backup. Greg Little on the offensive line was a nice pick in the draft. And Matt Paredes, one of the best centers in the league. They added him as well. And you got to think about how much they're getting back from injury as well in terms of Darrell Williams, even though that's not a part of the offseason. It just adds to what they did in terms of their plan. By adding Matt Paredes, getting back Darrell Williams, and signing him to a cheap 1-year contract, huge, sneaky re-signing there. In terms of the receivers, they added Chris Hogan, which he could be good as a 3rd receiver, 3rd option, because they're looking at DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel to be their 1-2. They have Chris Hogan at 3, Torrey Smith, and Jarius Wright. Those are some good options for Cam Newton, and hopefully Cam Newton, his strides, throwing the football now should be back and should be healthy. So I really like what the Panthers did because they're finally addressing the offensive line for Cam's sake, and they added back to the real strength of what their team used to be in their defensive line. At number 3, the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are number 3 because they made a lot of really sexy moves, but I also think they did lose a little bit in terms of their offensive line, which I really think was arguably their biggest strength last year. Like they lost 2 starters in their offensive line. So how really is Corbett going to come in there and play? How are they going to have Greg Robinson at left tackle? I'm just not sold on their tackle and their right guard. And if their offensive line falls apart, they're not going to have enough time to throw to Odell and throw to Jarvis. So if that really happens, and I don't know. So Steve Wilkes, defensive coordinator, nice add there. Freddie Kitchens is their head coach. I don't really believe that was the best move for them to make. I would have preferred him to stay as the OC and bring in a new head coach because I think they could have probably gotten any head coach they wanted. So by going with Freddie Kitchens, I felt like that was the safe move and not necessarily the right one. Looking at their defense, I don't care about the Kareem Hunt move, whatever. I don't think it's like as sexy as everybody wants to make it be because I think Nick Chubb is better anyways. I think he's going to play anyways. And I think Kareem Hunt is, he's going to miss 10 games this year, so I don't really count it towards the season. If they make the playoffs and he plays an important role, then maybe. But I kind of need to see it first. Then we go to the defense. Sheldon Richardson, I think, is a little bit overrated, but he is an upgrade from what they had before. Olivier Vernon, I think, is a huge upgrade, adds another defensive end to the mix with Myles Garrett for their pass rush. Secondary-wise, they got rid of Peppers, which I think is actually a great move because I don't think he was very good for their defense. Greedy Williams was one of the steals of the draft, so really like that move. And they also added Morgan Burnett. A veteran, not really good at this point, but at least he is a quality backup at the very least. So Cleveland Browns, I think with the Odell move, they set themselves up for a lot of success, but they were more sexy than actual production with their offseason, in my opinion. But they still, with those sexy moves, they still got productive players. At number 2, the New England Patriots. The Patriots, they just, again, had a very efficient offseason. It wasn't necessarily sexy, like Kevil put it, but it was effective. And I think they got the best receiver in the draft in N'Keal Harry, who I think is going to prove to be the best receiver in the draft. They added to their receiving core Demaryius Thomas, Dontrell Inman, all these other guys. Maurice Harris, who's apparently looking very good in minicamp. So one of these guys is going to turn out to be something for this receiving core, if that is your worry. Benjamin Watson is back, as well as Jamie Collins. I think Jamie Collins is going to be probably the steal for them of this offseason. He is already playing, like in minicamp, a lot of starting snaps and starting roles. Matt Lacoste is apparently looking pretty good. So I don't think their tight end position is going to be nearly as what it was with Gronk, but I don't think it's as big of a loss as it was. Damian Harris was a nice pick at running back. Chase Winovich, a lot of people love this guy. A lot of people love this pick, and I think that's warranted. I don't think Michael Bennett is a huge downgrade from what they had in Trey Flowers, and he's half the money. So good pickup there, smart money move. Mike Pennell is a super underrated defensive tackle that they got from the Jets. And then, secondary-wise, they added another corner in Jawan Williams in the second round, who's just another matchup type of guy. He's 6'4". He's going to be able to play a role as a chess piece in this Belichick defense. They retained Jason McCourty, which was a sneaky move as well. Overall, the Patriots just do what the Patriots do, and they had another efficient offseason. Philadelphia Eagles are the number one team. I agree with Kevol on his top two picks. They traded for Deshaun Jackson. So they have the deep threat, which was desperately missing from them last season. They didn't have that. Now that's going to open up Nelson Aguilar. That's going to open up Zach Ertz. That's going to open up Alshon Jeffrey. They added another receiver in the draft. Then they added Andre Dillard, which is going to be, like Dylan said, replacement for Jason Peters. They already have a very strong offensive line. They didn't need to do much there, but they added two running backs who are a massive upgrade to what they had. Miles Sanders, I thought, was arguably the best running back in the draft, and I think he was the second one off the board, maybe the third. Jordan Howard got for cheap, very effective NFL running back, not top 10, but he's probably top 20. Then you look at the defense. They added Malik Jackson. They added Hassan Ridgeway. They brought back Tim Jernigan. They added just a bunch of depth moves that so effective with their money. And then Zach Brown at linebacker was an absolute steal for, I think, only $3 million, replacing Jordan Hicks. And yeah, Andre Sedeo at safety. So I don't think the Eagles really got worse anywhere. I think they only got better. And they added to their biggest deficiencies, which was the running back position, the deep threat wide receiver, the backup left tackle, adding some depth to their defensive line. And overall, the Eagles, they just continue to impress me with the way that they maneuver the cap and find ways to add players to cheap contracts, very much in the same way as number 2, the Patriots. While the number 3 team is the sexy team, I don't really think they got more bang for their buck than the top 2. So that's my list.
All right. Very interesting.
So who's your 9 or 8? I might have missed that.
My 10 is the Oakland Raiders, baby. My number 9 is the Detroit Lions, and my number 8 is the Tennessee Titans.
I just want to comment on the Raiders decision. The reason I didn't put them there, I think, is just because the money and the issues that I have with some of their signings overall. I definitely agree with your assessment that since they got better, they could be. Yeah,
well, that's the goal. Get better, and that's what they did.
I get it. I agree. I just felt like with all the situations with, goddamn, this freaking fly, with the money and the contracts that they had, I wasn't feeling it. But I do understand what you got on that.
And I'm still concerned that they really didn't do a lot defensively for them to put them on my list. I'm still concerned with where that defense is. But offensively, they're going to be fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. Their offense has no reason to not be really good. Yeah. I mean, look at their offense.
Their offense, I'll say it, I think their offense could be better than Kansas City's this year.
It's a heck of an assessment.
It depends on Derek Carr.
It does depend on Derek Carr.
Derek Carr is the concern there. Not concerned, but
this has always been the case with Gruden. I mean, the only reason in Tampa Bay he had a good defense was because they already had one. But you know what I mean? He doesn't care about defense. Like, what they've really done with their defense is signing veteran players to low contracts. Signing Vontaze Burfict, signing Brandon Marshall. You know, they made one splash with LaMarcus Joyner and then added to their defense in the draft, but not necessarily with big signings. Like, maybe your problem is that they spent the money on Trent Brown instead of spending it on Trey Flowers. I don't know.
I'm not a big fan of the Trent Brown signing. That's personal, personally.
But I mean, they needed a tackle. They didn't really have anyone else.
But the money. That's what the highest paid left tackle in history.
Yeah, he was gonna get that anyways, probably though.
That's insane.
That's just the thing for tackles nowadays.
I wouldn't have paid him that money.
I wouldn't have either. But I'm just saying he was gonna get it. Someone was gonna give it to him.
I would have downgraded for any team that would have gotten him that. If that's the rule we're going off of. I don't know.
All right. And I think Jonathan Abram and Trayvon Mullen, interesting. If those guys turn out, you're instantly saying, "Hey, this defense actually not that bad."
I like
that defense. What Tony Dungy did is he challenged that Bucs defense to score points. Because that Bucs offense.
Well, the Bucs defense was also revolutionary. At the Tampa 2 defense was also revolutionary, which effed everybody's offense up. So.
And then they all started leaving after they won the Super Bowl. That whole team. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I think we mostly agreed on some of these teams. I only think there was 2 or 3 teams we didn't put on each other's list. So, I mean, pretty good stuff, I got to say. All right. So, one last thing. Comments section time. We want to read some of them. So I can't go that far in advance. I can only go 50 minutes back, which I apologize. So, if you guys have any comments for us, any questions, anything like that, any suggestions, leave that below right now, and we'll be answering them, and we'll be reading some comments here for the next couple minutes. Some of these guys are having a conversation of what should be in the Pro Bowl. Of course, the arm wrestling contest, that was fun. A defensive end leg wrestling challenge, says Ferocious Films. What is a leg wrestling challenge? Ugh. How does that work? That just sounds painful.
No idea.
I need some information about that. Gary says I would be down for a physical Pro Bowl, like the 40-yard dash, a pull-up challenge, a peg challenge. I don't know what a peg challenge is, but 40. I mean, they're doing the 40-yard dash later this month with some of those guys, some of the fastest guys.
I'd like to see Jerick McKinnon in a pull-up contest.
Jerick McKinnon.
I don't think anyone would beat Jerick McKinnon. I'm serious. I don't think anyone would beat Jerick McKinnon.
I don't know. I'd have to think. I wonder who would be put in that contest. It'd have to be somebody that's bigger. But
it's a guy. I would say running backs would be good.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, a DK Metcalf.
Maybe corners, safeties. Pat Chung would be really good at.
Or would you put him in based on weight? You know what I mean? Would you put him in that kind of category?
Well, because I don't think a defensive tackle outside of Aaron Donald would be great at pull-ups.
It'd be interesting to see. I'd like to see that challenge.
Antonio Brown is probably really good at pull-ups.
I gotta imagine he would be. Let's see.
We should do a video like that, guessing who would win every contest.
Oh, I thought you meant doing this because there's no way.
No, not doing it.
No.
Couldn't do a pull-up to save my life.
I can do pull-ups, but I wouldn't want to challenge you guys to that.
I'd win in other challenges. 40-yard dash.
Right.
Billy versus Isaac. Book it.
Let's go. I got this. Freeman says, do you guys think my Seahawks, this is for Kev, I guess, will win the NFC West? I think the Seahawks will because they've got Russell Wilson, good running backs, good secondary, good linebacking corps, and a good D line. They also got Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright. I think they could make the playoffs. I don't think they'll win the division. I think you're around the same boat, Kev. What do you think?
I'm not seeing them. The Rams have taken a step back, but I don't think the Seahawks have made a step. They're not on they are not on our top 10 off seasons. And I don't think they've done enough to do that yet. So I would like their offensive line. I'm concerned about the pass rush. And I'm not sure when Zionza will start. That's a nice pickup, but he's not playing 16 games, and we'll have to see.
Breaking news.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up.
Texans fire GM Brian Gaine.
Wow.
I was not expecting that to happen. I'm kind of out of left field, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. The Texans
it makes sense to me.
It makes sense. It just kind of came out of nowhere.
Honestly, a lot of people, including myself, have been saying that Bill O'Brien is on the hot seat. But really, if you think about it, it's not Bill O'Brien's fault. Like, the roster's deficiencies have not been solved. And you're just going to blame that on Bill O'Brien?
Who can't pick these picks? Or
yeah, he's not picking. The GM's picking. Like, he's not saying I don't want an offensive lineman.
My thing is that I felt like this move was going to come after next season if they didn't make the playoffs. I feel like both him and Bill O'Brien would have been fired if that's the case.
Sure, I always think, like, in my opinion, it's not been the coaching of the Texans, it's been the players. Like, you saw it last year. Their offensive line was really horrible.
Terrible.
And their secondary for seasons has not been good.
And the only thing on their second, well, they had decent.
The only season it was good was when they had AJ Bouye. That was the only season.
Oh, that hurt. I'm kind of surprised by the timing of it. I felt like it would either have happened right after they lost the wild card game or would have been next season. Just in this kind of moment, I'm kind of surprised by it. But I'm not mad about it. Like, I think it's a good move. You know, like, they need to do it.
Yeah, I think it's a good move.
I agree.
Especially with the Jets, like, getting rid of their GM, and now all these names are kind of circulating around who would want a job, and some of them are very, like, big names that, like, a lot of people like across the NFL. So it kind of makes sense that they would make this move now, seeing who is out there that would possibly want to take the job.
Yeah, that's fair. Didn't think about it that way.
In terms of we do the 10 worst off seasons, I know that I will have to consider the Texans in my list.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's probably a big reason.
Well, maybe that's why you got the boot. Durkant, not a fan of your 49ers pick. I don't think he's ever liked the 49ers across.
He hates the 49ers.
It's health, though. It's the question with the 49ers is health.
That's what everyone keeps commenting on my video.
But if they do,
I'm like, I can't predict health.
No, I know, but that's why I think people are a little bit more reserved about them too.
Unless if you're a strictly prone like an injury prone player, I can't be like, all right, this guy's
yeah. But even then, I won't predict you to get hurt for the whole year. I might predict you to get hurt for like 3 games.
Yeah, I'll question whether or not, because Kev, you just mentioned, I forgot who it was.
Like Jordan Reed.
Yeah,
he'll probably play 8 games this year, but I don't know if he's going to play less.
Yeah. It's like when you said with Ziggy Ansah, he's not a 16-guy game or game guy. There you go. So, it kind of just depends. That's how it is. But I'm not going to be like, all right, injury. I can't do that. I will say, like, coming off of an injury, will he be good or something like that? But that's a different story. People are talking about the NFC West. They're talking about the 49ers could win the division, the records. Ultra has the Rams at 10-6. Seahawks, 49ers at 9-7. Seahawks at 7-9, interestingly enough. Cardinals 4-12. People are talking about the Cardinals and how many games they'll win, seeing 2 to 4 games. I don't see them with 2. I don't see them having less wins than last year. They had 3. They got better. I predict 5 personally.
They have an easy schedule.
Yeah, they actually have a pretty easy schedule. I'll have to look into that. We didn't talk about this. It wasn't really a headline that I forgot, but Carson Wentz is an extension. Is what was it, 130?
I think Kev talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, that's why I kind of
Did you? Okay. What do you think about it, Mitch? What do you think about that contract?
I think it's interesting that they do it now. I think they're kind of figuring that he's maybe showing signs in minicamp that he's healthy. So they want to get in front of this before he has a really great season, and then he's demanding more money. I think that's the strategy. Take advantage of it while he's kind of at the low point of his potential, you know?
Yeah, and that's fair if they see that. He's always been a talented quarterback. Obviously, the season before he tore his ACL, I mean, he was an MVP candidate. So I think the biggest thing is health. And I guess if they're going to offer him this contract, they're like sold on it. And he says he's feeling better than ever. So
yeah, like that's the whole point. Like, I don't ever doubt his talent. I just doubt the health thing. I just doubt if he's going to be healthy for this like contract. So if you think that the health is not as big of a deal as it has been, then why not go sign him now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do think though he needs to have a rebound season.
Yeah.
In terms, I don't think he had a great season last year.
They need to win this division. In order to feel very happy about what's going on in the future, they need to win this division, especially with this contract. Somebody says Fant is Ebron 2.0.
I can see that.
Then that must be good because Ebron just led the league in touchdowns for tight ends.
Yeah, no, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
It just sounds interesting. It's like an interesting comparison, I think.
So he's going to suck somewhere and then go somewhere else and then play good.
And then just screw the other team. Somebody says that Ryan Tannehill is also injury prone. I don't trust him to stay healthy.
If he's the backup and not playing, then I would hope he would stay healthy.
Otherwise, he's like Matt LaFleur playing basketball in the offseason.
I'm just going to put this out there. The guy used to play wide receiver. I'm just saying.
Why? So you're going to line him up at receiver?
Yeah.
Well, people are doing
Have
weird
him throw it?
People are doing weird things nowadays.
Yeah.
They wanted to move people to certain positions. They asked Tim Tebow to go to tight end.
Hey, Edelman used to play quarterback, Kev.
Oh,
just saying.
Guys, did you know he did that?
Saying.
Guys, did you know Chris Hogan played lacrosse? Oh my God.
Yeah, he's gonna have a lacrosse.
Carolina with the lacrosse thing there.
Every national telecast, it'd be like, Chris Hogan played lacrosse. I'm like, I know. Thank you for telling me. I've got this in my head now.
Did you know?
Did you? I guess you wouldn't. And then, like, I bet at this point my mom knows it, for God's sakes. Let's see.
Did you know Mohamed Sanu played quarterback?
Really?
Did you know George Fant played basketball?
No way.
Did you know Antonio Gates played basketball? That was another one. Holy.
Tony Gonzalez played
Same as Tony, yeah.
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham.
And then that's why he would just slam the basket, or like slam it on the field goal post before it's not allowed anymore. Screw the NFL for that. Taking away our fun.
Did you know Russell Wilson played baseball? And Kyler Murray also played baseball.
He played baseball with the Oakland? I don't know if anybody knows that one.
Did you know Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round?
Did you know Kyler Murray was drafted in the 1st round of baseball and football? Ooh, not even Bo Jackson can say that one. Oh, gosh. Okay, Ferocious Film says, I agree with Browns #1, not to mention the popularity of the growth from the franchise. Thinks John Dorsey is the GM of the year.
If they win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Or go far in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're going to go far in the playoffs, definitely. Predator says, geez, man, San Francisco again? Gross. They're not feeling this. They're not feeling it. I'm feeling it, but they're not feeling it. And Kev isn't either. Where did we rank the Panthers? I ranked the Panthers #8, where you had them at #3, Mitch?
4.
And I did not put them on the list.
And you did not put them on the list, interestingly enough. So we're all mixed. We're all very scattered around on that decision. Charm City says, I feel like this Ravens should have made the list. I can understand why they didn't because of the losses, but at the same time, they had a good free agency and draft. I think it's the biggest thing was the losses. When you lose a lot of that defense, which is their backbone, I think that kind of really hurts them. They did have some good signings. Earl Thomas was good, and they had a pretty decent draft. But
I don't think that great. I don't think it was that spectacular of a draft.
I don't think it was fantastic. I think it was good players and good signing, or like good pieces, but not to.
They got a lot. I think they got smaller, actually.
You think they got what?
Smaller. They did not pick a lot of guys with size. So.
Yeah, no, they definitely went for smaller guys. I agree there. I just think middle of the pack. I don't think it was terrible, but it wasn't mind blowing either. Ferocious Films hates the 49ers. Jesus. I'm wondering when Dak Prescott is going to get his money. He's definitely going to get it soon. I don't know. Maybe this $30 million contract per year is going to happen, which is crazy and a little scary, but definitely worth. I mean, he's worth it. He's the franchise guy, so he'll definitely be getting it soon. And plus, once the announcement that Carson Wentz got his money, I mean, they're gonna be like, all right, let's go. Let's get it now. Let's get it done. All right. I think that is it for this episode of the podcast, episode number 7 in the books. I hope you guys enjoyed. Smash the like button. Comment below some of your thoughts on this video.
You forgot something.
What's that?
We didn't do the basketball list.
Oh, crap. I totally forgot about that.
Which basketball list?
The making your football team.
We'll do that next week.
Okay, we'll advertise. Okay.
All right, we'll save it for next week. But it's definitely a video that can't go out of style, so it's not like a hot topic. So we'll be there next week. There you go. Even a cheap plug for next week's episode. We'll have it there for episode 8. So don't forget to comment below your thoughts on these our discussions of these topics. Of course, our top 10 off-season list as well. Whose was the best? Everything above that. Subscribe. Of course, it's got to be that guy over there. No, the Johnny Manziel guy. Anyways, subscribe to the Bottom Line View. Of course, we reached the big milestone of 10,000 right after, literally like hours after the last podcast. So this is the first time we brought it up. We're at 10,667, so we're 2/3 from 10,000 to 11,000. That's crazy, insane. Subscribe to the Bottom Line View to hit that milestone, and we got more content. Plug time. Kev, what do you got to plug?
Podcast will be on Sunday this week. We have the C4 podcast. Anna Forsyth will be joining. We're talking about Nikitas. We're probably going to have to talk about refereeing again. And we are going to talk about what the Canucks should do at number 10. But do check out last week we interviewed Cam Robinson, so check that out. Went really well and talked about the Oilers last week as well. But this week, Anna Forsyth from C4 at least will be joining us.
Perfect. And you can listen to that at?
Agree or disagree. We will be having a brand new website, podcast logo, all of that coming up, but still on KevinOlin.com, Spreaker Kevin, subscribe on iTunes and wherever you get. It's not iTunes anymore.
It's gone today.
It's gone. Whatever the name of.
Wait, what?
Yeah, iTunes.
It's not iTunes anymore. It's something else.
Oh. Huh. You learn something new every day.
Go check out all that stuff for Kev. Oh, Mitch, I know you got all these videos pumping out. What you got?
Oh, man, I got so many videos that I can't even keep up. Okay, so I got this written down right here. Every team's MVP going into the 2019 season. Who's going to be every team's MVP in the NFL? I'm going to rank every defense and every offense in the NFL. And I have more topic videos coming out. I have this idea that I should do one for every team, but it's kind of hard to make an idea up for every team. It just kind of organically comes to me. But other videos I have is bold predictions for the season, 5 new playoff teams I think will make it, 5 guarantees for the season. So a lot of these kind of lists and topics coming up, and then those rants will keep coming too.
Perfect. Good NFL content. You don't want to miss it from all of the boys here. I'll have some stuff later on as well. Cannot wait. And then, of course, keep coming back for the podcast every single Friday. It has got good content, and we're getting those guests for you guys. You don't want to miss out. So, for Mitch and Kevin, the Bottom Line View, it's Dylan. Peace out.
Deuces.